Hello everyone and welcome to my Stitch With Me session. Today is Wednesday, I believe, and it's quite early in the morning, so I'm not quite fully awake yet, so please excuse me if I'm a little incoherent. I'm working on Sad Fairy today, which is one of my projects, and it's a regular chart, and I started this one back in the end of 2019 or early 2020, I believe. So yeah, it's been going a couple of years and I'm currently at 45% on this chart. So incredibly, I've, consistently made my way through it. And I'm coming along on these diagonal rows here. I think in my last video, I was saying to people that I kind of chop and change quite a bit. It's quite common for me to do that. But that's not a terrible thing. I mean, there's no reason why you have to stick to a certain method indefinitely. You can chop and change as much as you like. And I've been coming down in diagonals. And I think in my last video, I was saying that I would have liked to do shorter diagonals because it feels like you're getting them done quicker. So maybe stopping here and just doing the diagonal sections and sort of cutting it off. Or some people are really brave and they go all the way down in diagonals. They just keep going and going till they're really, really long, till they reach the bottom. I mean, it really must take a lot. It must take a long time to actually finish a diagonal. Probably take a few weeks, I'd imagine, to finish a diagonal that way. But it's probably still also really cool to see the end result from that. But then I realized when I was doing the short diagonals, I realized that I don't actually like the bottom of the diagonal, because when you reach the bottom of it, it suddenly cuts off, and then you reach that point. It's just different to when you just keep going. Plus, you don't have to keep cutting off with short ones. You can just keep going, basically. So I thought, well, I don't really like stopping and then stopping actually. So I then just decided to keep going on this one. And my diagonals have been getting longer as they have on the other projects that I'm doing diagonals on. So yeah, I guess it just depends on your own preferences, what it is you prefer. I can see the lights playing around a little bit. Let's see if I can make the light less intrusive here. That might be better. Yeah, so it really does depend on how you like to stitch, the way you like to stitch, basically. It's just completely up to you. Nobody's going to really expect you to stitch a certain way or not stitch a certain way. Okay, I'm not liking the lighting at the moment. So yeah, it's going fine. I'm quite enjoying going back to my older whips. I feel like after I'd taken a little break from them, it was kind of nice to start doing them again. Inevitably, sometimes with some stitches, you do actually need a break from your whips, and this is probably why we get into rotation mode as well, because it just gives us a bit of variety, and I can fully understand that. But like I've said before, I do like to see progress. So the only way to see real progress on a particular piece is just to keep going with it, right? Just keep going with it. But if you've got lots of them on the go, which we've all done, well, most of us, you do get your monogamous stitches. You just want to see progress. And I think people who are watching also like to see the progress. So I'm going to try and finish this diagonal here. although I feel like I'm going a little bit in slow mode at the moment because I'm trying to stitch in a way that's not going to make the lighting too irritating, because every time I put my hand up it changes the light in the window, changes the way the light reflects on the camera lens, blah blah blah, same old story. So let's see if I can get this right today. Okay, so Sad Fairy, yeah, this is a design by, well, it's charted by Heaven and Earth, and it's by an artist called Alena Lazareva, I believe her name is. I always remember that. I never seem to forget the artist's name for some reason. I love the colours of this one. The dark greys, the dark blues. I just find it very sort of a combination between soft and gothic. All the branches, the bare branches, and the very moody sky really appeals to me. Because I'm quite a moody person. I think I'm one of those people that hits high and low moods quite frequently. And I don't think I'm bipolar because I've never been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. My doctors have never said anything like that. But I am a very sensitive and, moody person. So I can feel down and I can feel quite bright within a short period of time. But nothing in extremes. I don't think I'm extreme. I'm fairly calm overall, quiet. I think that's probably the best way to describe myself. So, being a moody kind of person, I can relate to a piece of work like this. Now, am I going to park this one somewhere? 1, 2, 3. Decided not to rush this. I'm just not going to rush it, so please bear with me, because the last few times I've done a stitch with me, I have just gone rambling away and stitching, and I haven't paid any attention to what I'm doing. Well, only kind of half attention, which I don't think is good enough really. And by paying only half attention, I've made loads of mistakes, which are not really that noticeable, but it's a bit, frustrating. So I've decided I'm going to just slow it down stitching wise. I'm still going to chat to you. So I make less mistakes to have to frog or pick out later on. Yeah, so I'm currently in my living room. It's a really awkward angle. Normally I do stitch with me's in the spare room, which has now been converted into a office and craft room. However, my husband uses the room remotely for his work, and because there's 2 desks in there, one for each of us. And I can't do stitch with me's while he's working, because obviously when he's on meeting calls and if I'm rambling about stitching in the background, it's not going to sound very professional. And so it's a bit awkward. And if I do stitch with me's at night, then I have to get out all the lighting and, just set everything up. So for ease of being able to do it a little bit quicker, I have set up in the living room with my camera, with my phone, and hopefully it's not too bad. And you can understand how awkward it is to set this sort of stuff up on a stand and on a tripod. I've tried all different angles. It's very, very awkward. So yeah, thank you for bearing with me. I have to pick this one out from here. So I really been able to get quite a lot of stitches in this week. I managed to get about 300 or 400 stitches a day on each of these ones that I'm currently rotating, which I think is fabulous. I think that's a good amount of stitches to get done, and it's mostly because I've been concentrating on the stitching more and not looking at TV, and which I tend to do. So yeah, it's quite funny, because if I just stitch and I don't distract my mind with other things as well, my mind goes off into its own world of, it depends again on the mood. It can go off into a good trajectory, or it can go off into a bad one. And there are times when you can sit there and be thinking about your past, and all the experiences you've had and how they've affected you, and before you know it, you've turned yourself into a nervous wreck, and all you've done is just sit there for an hour, and internally the monologue, the narrative that you have in your mind, just completely changes your mood, makes you upset. Or there's been points where I've just sat there crying. My husband's come in and said, "What's wrong?" I'm like, nothing's wrong. He's like, "Why are you crying?" Because I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about my dad, and I'm thinking about that, and all the things that have happened. And he's just like, "Oh, you have to stop doing that." And it's absolutely true. We can just lead ourselves into complete despair. So I try to then distract myself stitching and listening to audiobooks, which can work fine. But I also have the ability to listen to an audiobook and still be off in my own head, right? Off in my own thoughts, which, is absolutely ridiculous, because there's words going into my ear, but they seem to be coming out of the other side because I'm not listening. And before I know it, I have to rewind a whole chapter just to figure out what it is what it is that they're saying. I'm lost. So that sometimes works. Sometimes I can focus on the audiobook, and sometimes the audiobook just passes me by. It just goes through my ear canal and out the other side. So there's that. And then other times I can successfully stitch and watch television, depending how enthralling the program is that I'm watching. Or okay, so the last thing I watched was Daisy Jones and the Six, which is like a new Netflix series about a 70s band that come together, and all the romantic entanglements and problems that they have. And it was really, really good. So I got so absorbed by it, I literally stopped stitching and was watching the TV the whole time. Which is okay, because if you actually stop the stitching while you're really, really immersed, you're not making mistakes. Oh well, we'll get there eventually. Mostly, I just do nothing. I just sit and stitch and try to be aware of the path that my mind is going down, which I think is probably good training. Okay, I think I have a thread in the wrong hole, which is something not unusual, because I've got 3 or 4 threads here at the moment, which are all so similar. It's ridiculous how similar they are in colour. And yeah, it just makes things a little bit awkward. So if you're wondering which fabric this is, because it's not a white fabric and it's not an easy count, this fabric is called DMC. Actually, it is easy count. It's called DMC Easy Count. The only thing is that I'd washed it and gotten rid of the grid, because it was in a 20 by 20 grid. I'm sure some of you have used this fabric. I've seen it throughout Flosstube. It's got little red squares. And it also had a very kind of plasticky feel to it, I think, a bit too plasticky for me. So I washed it and it came out fine for me then. Or, okay, it didn't have the grid, but not the end of the world. I was able to do my rows and my blocks without a grid. No problem. The only thing is parking. Parking can be a little bit precarious. I think I might just end this thread. I'll go down a little bit. Parking can be a little bit precarious without a grid. In fact, it can be a lot precarious. So, when in doubt, don't park. Just cut your thread off. That's what I do. Okay, but these colours are just gorgeous. I don't know what this one's called. This is 930. Look at that. It's like a silvery blue. I wonder if you can see it in the light. Silvery blue, quite magnificent. Okay. So I think when I'm just stitching and I'm not recording, I'm usually going like 3 times faster, but obviously I don't want to mess it all up. And I was trying different needles as well because I wasn't sure. I never have particularly stuck to a needle size. I always just pick up whatever I've got in my stash and I'm okay with using. Never really paid attention to the sizes, but now I've realized that my go-to size is 26. A 24 would be a smaller needle, I think. Have I got that the right way around? Oh gosh. Yeah, my head is not paying attention. I'll figure it out. I did tell you it was early in the morning and I wasn't going to be able to figure out everything. I've got 2 stitches there. Yeah, that's okay. Let's not mess this up. It's going to be a little bit of counting now, unfortunately. So I'm still focusing on my focus pieces and happy with that. Not really dissatisfied enough to want to change the setup at the moment. So 45%, I think that's pretty good. I think I was looking at some of my stats yesterday and I realized that with Riverwalk Charm, I have completed about 115,000 stitches out of 389,000 or something thereabouts. And I worked out that if I was going to finish it, which has been set as has sort of been set as my current goal, if I stitch 200 stitches a day on Riverwalk Charm, I will finish that chart at the end of 2026. That's 3 years. I'm not even at 50%. I'm only at 30% on that chart. And it has 389,000 stitches. So I've only done just under a third. So if I do 200 a day, that's a nice little consistent amount to do every day, and it's also doable mostly. However, also alternatively, if I want to be completely ridiculous and think of it as a short-term project, if I did 900 stitches a day, I would finish it by the end of this year. However, I think 900 stitches a day is completely ludicrous. I don't see how I could ever get 900 stitches done a day unless I literally super glued my backside to my seat and never went anywhere and had my meals served to me on a tray. Hell, I might as well even use a potty or something to to relieve myself, because 900 stitches a day, and if we get into confetti land, we're talking never stand up again. So yeah, I mean, it sounds wonderful in theory, but in practice it cannot work. So there isn't any point really in trying to go for challenges like that. Yeah, I mean, that in a short-term basis, maybe over a weekend or a long weekend, you might be able to do it, but I don't see that happening as a long-term solution to the end of the year. Okay, just park this one again. I mean, you know, in some respects, it could even be conceived as torture, I think. Hey, you sit there and stitch for 12 hours every day and don't move. Don't speak to anyone, don't go outside. Hell, don't even sleep unless you've done your 900. Yeah, sounds terrible. That's not for me. Nope. So I'm just going to keep plodding on with this 200 a day plus whatever else I get, which is not being counted as goals as such. So if I want to work on this one and I want to work on the Thomas Kincaid, I'll do that, and the Fruits of Plenty. And that's, for the moment, I'm kind of satisfied with that kind of goal. I think I've got confused, have I? No. 1, 2, 3 stitches there, 2 stitches there. Okay, I think I'm going to have to come back after messing this up again. Okay, so I just had to go and fix this up a little bit there because there was a couple of issues. Kind of looking at this sideways, actually, isn't the easiest way to stitch. Is that changing the light again? There's a little bit. So yeah, I think I've lost my train of thought completely now. I don't know what I was saying. Started to get a little bit lost. Park over here. Yeah, it's slightly more difficult without the grid. It's not impossible. I wouldn't recommend it without a grid. It's just you have to pay more attention to your counting. That really does make a difference to how much quicker you stitch actually. So in hindsight, if I was to start this again or do another one, I would go back to the easy count grid, even weave. Perhaps not this particular type, but the one that I'm most used to, which is the standard Lugana that has the grey grid. That's the one I would use. Okay, that hand is making the light worse than this hand. So. Yeah. So don't grid yourself unless you really have to. Some people are really good at it. I tried it once and I messed it up completely. It's so easy to count 9 squares instead of 10. Then your grid just goes completely mad. That's the last time I'm doing that one. I'm just looking out of the window there and wondering if that sun is going to come out today. It doesn't look like it will, although I have been pleasantly surprised before. We've had the most awful overcast weather for ages now. Just there's been very, very little sunshine. And it's amazing how quickly the town fills up with people when the sun comes out. Honestly, you'd think it was Barbados. As soon as the sun comes out, they're out in shorts, they're out in t-shirts. And then the funny thing is, you go into the town and you see them all like, yay, it's spring and the sun is here now. And they're all, mowing the garden lawn and going out into the town and sitting out outside having their drinks in their shorts and t-shirts. And the next minute the cloud comes over, covers the sun, and then it starts bucketing down with rain. And you say to yourself, you know, I'm the clever one because I'm the one who didn't go out in the shorts and t-shirt. Or at least if I did, I packed away, like a raincoat or an umbrella, which I'm still carrying around because this is Scotland. And the funny thing is, even the locals, I think most of them should know this, right? They know their country, they know their weather. But you still see some of them out there with their shorts and t-shirts, But hey, if it makes them feel good, there's nothing wrong with that. They're happy, they've got some sun at last. I would not begrudge them the couple of hours that they need to wear those summer clothes in order to feel good. So there, yeah. I think it's fine. It's just amusing, but it's fine. I remember when I first came to Scotland and I was trying to, understand the local culture, which wasn't too foreign to me, to be honest, because I have been raised in different places. I was raised in the UK prior to being in the Mediterranean. So being raised in the UK is not too far different anywhere, in the UK. Scotland is in the UK. So it was like easy for me to understand people and the culture. But there is always going to be something that catches you out, right? So I remember when I went to pick up my son from his primary school, and it was like that the rain was absolutely crazy. And I went out with this huge umbrella, and I thought this huge umbrella will be great. It's so sturdy and strong. I'm going to be able to get all the way to the school because I didn't have a car, no driving at the time. I'm going to be able to get all the way to the school, which is only like a 15-minute walk anyway. And I'm not going to get wet or, thrown into a bush. And I was pretty confident about that because I had purchased this really sturdy, strong, large umbrella. And then when I was outside walking along the street, I was thinking, I'm not seeing anybody with an umbrella. Everybody's just got like thick coats, thick hoods, like those big furry hoods. I was like, maybe I should get one of those. Why are they not using an umbrella? Anyway, so I turn a corner and this huge gust of wind comes and gets me. And my huge umbrella just turned inside out completely. And it just completely mangled itself. My hair was all over my face, and I have pretty long hair. I couldn't see anything. The rain was whipping across my face with the wind. I mean, I felt like I was actually being beaten up by the elements. And I saw a couple of people just actually laughing, which I felt was really not a very nice thing because I was obviously in discomfort. And I looked across the road, and there was a couple of younger women laughing at me because my umbrella went completely mental. I just didn't feel I felt so embarrassed. And after that, I never took out an umbrella again when it was windy and raining and, true Scot weather. I learned my lesson. And now I think I've kind of blended in because I immediately went out and got myself one of these big thick coats with the big furry hood. And yeah, it's great. It just protects you from everything. So that's kind of one of the things you learn. And I guess coming from, which I did at the time, coming from the Mediterranean where, most of the time it's hot, right? Most of the time you just get sun. So you don't really think about the really bad storms. Although we did get a few of those now, I have to say. And when I say bad, I mean really bad, like thrashing rain. Okay, that's it for that cover, I think. I'm going to park it there. So yeah, know your country and know its weather is one of the things, because I'm sure many of you have got great stories to tell about the weather in the US or even in Australia and different places. You must have fantastic stories to tell. Yeah, I think I'd love to hear some of those. We'll get this one now. So yeah, back to my original point of the weather's a bit dreary. We had nice sun yesterday. Did I go anywhere yesterday? You know, I'm having trouble in remembering what I did yesterday. I can tell you what I did a few months ago or years ago, but I can't tell you what I did yesterday. But it was sunny, I think, and today has been the complete opposite. Like, it's not that kind of not going out weather, but it is sort of miserable weather. Yeah, that's what we call it in the UK, miserable weather. However, I'm thinking that, well, from what I've seen from the news reports, we're going to have a really nice sunny weekend. Hooray! The only thing with really nice sunny weekends is that everybody else has the same thing. Hooray! And then you end up going into crowded places, and because they're the places that everyone wants to be, right? Like into the bars, outside, sitting outside, and going down to the beach. And one thing that my husband and I find quite difficult is crowded places. We just don't really do well in crowded places. I mean, we're okay with a moderate amount of, a small crowd, but when some places get really packed up, the anxiety is too much. So you tend to kind of avoid things, but then you tend to kind of avoid the fun things because that's where everybody wants to be. But, there's always opportunities, and we do that a lot, is to go through parks, green parks for walks where there's more open space. You can have more space to yourself. And I find that's a good solution to a lot of things. Okay, I'm going to have to end this thread down here because it's not, I know it's just going to come off the needle any second. Really, we're working with just 2 or 3 colours here at the moment. Mostly. And then we'll be coming down to a little point here. Then I'll go back to the top and start again, I think. But I'm thinking if I carry on with the diagonals down this way, I will end up, it'll be nicely sectioning this chart. So you'll get some of the fairy's wing up here, which I think will be coming out something like that. And then it's going to start chopping into hair. But if I continued with the smaller diagonals, it's going to be a long time for me to reach any of these details. I'm just going to be doing a lot of background, till I eventually come down to here. So the good thing about the diagonal stitching is, I think a lot of people that do diagonal stitching will agree, that you get a nicer variety of details as you're going. I think that's appealing to me more at the moment with these charts because there is so much background to them. And at the time that I chose these charts, I merely went on the fact of, on the basis that I just like the pictures. I didn't think about the stitching aspects and how much background I'd have to be doing. But yeah, there is truly an awful lot sometimes. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that you can be stuck a long time in a certain area that just never seems to end. Okay, where am I parking this one now? Is it here? Yeah. No, I'm not going to park it there. I'm going to continue down to here. Yeah. Not too difficult. No mistakes yet, really. I want to push these out of the way so I know that they're not part of my current part that I'm working. So this mightn't be such a very long stitch with me today because I need to pop to the grocery store and get some things, and I can hear my son stirring, so he likes a little chat in the mornings. He's quite chirpy, more than in the evenings, I think. He likes to come out and have a chat about the things that he's currently into. Like at the moment, he's 15, so he's really into computer stuff and creating animations at the moment, stop motion animations, and currently looking for ideas on what he can record in stop animations. But he's doing really well, and he's coming up with some really creative little scenes and really enjoying it, and sending them to me and his dad on sending them to us every day so we can watch them. And it's really quite cool for him and something for him to enjoy. I hope there's not going to be too many shadows on this video when I go back to watch it, because if there are, I just don't think it's going to be worth showing you. Or maybe you'll just forgive me. We'll see. Okay. Yeah. One stitch on this one. So as you can see, for the last 50 stitches or so, I've just been doing the same couple of colours, which is going to go on quite a bit. I remember doing that all up here. Oh my goodness, it felt like it felt like Groundhog Day. It's the same all the time. 1, 2. Goodness me, my nose feels a little dry. I'm having trouble threading sometimes lately. It's really amazing you can get such a good day and such a bad day with the threading. I've still got some threads. Sometimes I just park them anywhere outside the diagonal, because then I can just pick it up and do a few stitches with it, even if there are other threads there. So I've seen some lovely new charts that have been released by Heaven and Earth Design. A lot of them have been Aimee Stewart designs, which are quite popular. Very interesting ones. Not completely to my taste now. There is a point at which I find some things just to be a little bit too busy to stitch. I mean, they might be great to stitch actually, because you get revealing things as you go all the time. With something like this, some people might consider really boring because it's just background. I get that. So actually the journey of stitching a lot of these pieces that have a lot of details is more interesting because of the way that you unveil all the little pictures. But I would probably like that also. But as for actually framing something and putting it on the wall, I find when things are too busy, I tend to not be able to appreciate them as much because my eyes just don't know where to look. And I don't know if anybody else finds that. You kind of just miss things because it's too difficult to focus on one thing. Focus on the actual, whatever's drawing your eye. Unless you sit there staring at something for a long time and, owning, going right into each detail. But very nice charts, definitely. And there was one which I actually did like a lot, was like a flower garden, a spring. It was like spring flowers, and it had a gate or a window or something, and it was really so pretty. I thought it was beautiful. I could see myself stitching that, but then I thought that's probably going to be a huge one. I probably would prefer to do it as a mini, but in a mini, I'm not sure how nice it would look. I'd have to check the mock-up, and I don't really want to pay for a mini to then find that I don't like the mock-up. So, yeah, maybe one day there will be a mini and I can check it out. It seems quite likely because these charts are quite popular. I did request the mini for my Thomas Kincaid, so if anybody else has bought that as a mini, you can thank me for that. No, it's fine, honestly. I don't mind. I did request the size so that I could do that one in a smaller fabric. But I did think that it looked okay when I saw the mock-up to actually stitch. I don't think it's that costly to request a mini. I'm not sure exactly. I think it's somewhere between $5 and $10 maybe. I'm not too sure. I can remember. So it's not really asking too much. Not really expensive for, expecting them to do a bit of extra work for you to do a mini. But it does mean that once they've done the mini, they then put them on the website for other people to be able to take advantage of the mini, to be able to buy it. Because, why would you do a mini for one person and then just throw away the chart? You wouldn't. You'd put it up for sale as well. So be prepared that if you do a mini, if you do request a mini, other people are all going to be able to buy it as well eventually. And some people, I think, wait for minis to be requested. So yeah, if that one ever comes out as a mini, I'd be curious to see. And I don't think I would, not sure I'd really enjoy stitching that one as much as I'd enjoy the final result. I think there's a difference. Might be a bit of a disparity because some charts are really nice to stitch and other ones are not so nice to stitch, but you really love the final picture. I think it could be something like that because it's like the Birds and Blooms flower garden. And when you're doing endless greenery or flowers, it's nice once they get revealed, but the actual confetti involved has got to be quite dense because of the amount of details that each flower needs. So yeah, there is that. Now, why have I got 3 stitches there? Okay, I think I'm missing a stitch, never mind. See, these colours all look so alike that if you miss a stitch, it's not a huge deal. With these greys, it can be confusing, and many a time I've come to find I'm actually using the wrong colour completely, but it isn't so far different from the one I'm supposed to be using. So it's just, if it's in a background like this, I'm not gonna shed too many tears, to be honest. Life's too short for that. Okay. There is a diagonal line there, isn't there? I feel like I've gone off track. Goodness me, it seems like the less confetti there is, the more difficult it is to count. Not doing too great at the moment with the counting. I'm just going to finish this row. Then I'm going to take a break and I'm going to go and check on my son, see if he needs anything. Then come back a bit later and maybe continue with this and finish this actual diagonal. And come back again for another stitch with me soon. And I can come back with the same one, or I can come back with one of the other ones, with the Thomas Kincaid, perhaps, or Riverwalk Charm again. It's going to be Riverwalk Charm until it's finished, unfortunately. I'm being quite disciplined. And if I start one, it's total insanity that will have caused it. But hey, I'm just warning you in advance. There may come a day where I'll just turn up and say, hey, I've got a new start. So You'll have to pretend to be excited for me. Right, okay, so this is where I'm going to park. That's where I'm stopping for now. Bring it out a little bit for you to see. And yeah, I think it's coming along really nice. Thanks for spending the time with me again. I really appreciate it. It's nice to chat with you all. And I'll be back again soon. Hope you have a lovely week.